Fogged Cairngorm Ridge, October 2018. A camera trap blinks awake. Yellow eyes. A ringed tail thicker than any house cat's. The ghost wasn't gone. Scottish Wildcat Action's 2012 survey put the number at 100 to 300. By 2018, genetic analysis collapsed it further, around 30 to 35 pure cats. Only 5 to 10 breeding viable. The killer wasn't bullets, it was 300,000 feral domestics dissolving the gene pool. September 2019. A converted outbuilding at the Highland Wildlife Park near Kincraig. Inside, a steel door slides open and a thin, ring-tailed shape steps onto fresh straw, ears flat, pupils blown wide. The keeper does not speak. She does not make eye contact. She closes the door and walks away. That silence is the entire philosophy of what's about to follow. The ark, if it works, will be built out of distance. The project is called Saving Wildcats. It launches with EU Life funding totaling 6.4 million euros, coordinated by the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland. From the first week, it is run less like a zoo program and more like a genetic rescue operation under siege, because that's exactly what it is. With only 5 to 10 breeding viable pure cats left in the wild, there is no margin. Every kitten that fails to survive, every pairing that fails to take, every cat that imprints on humans and loses its wildness is a percentage of the entire remaining gene pool gone forever. The team builds the ark in 5 rooms, 5 breeding facilities scattered across Scotland, the Highland Wildlife Park at Kincraig, the Allendale Wilderness Reserve, a new conservation breeding center at Lily Hill, partner facilities at Kincraig's satellite enclosures, and Photo Wildlife Park in Ireland, brought in as a genetic insurance policy in case disease ever swept through the Scottish sites. 5 separate vaults, all networked, all sharing studbook data, all working from the same DNA-vetted founder population of just 23 cats. 23, that is the number the entire species is being rebuilt from. Every one of them sequenced at the Wild Genes Laboratory in Edinburgh. Every one of them confirmed above the 75% genetic purity threshold the project set. And every potential pairing run through software that treats the studbook like a chess endgame. Which male goes to which female? Which lineage cannot meet which lineage for 3 generations? Which cat carries an allele too rare to risk losing? The geneticists are not matchmaking, they are stacking probabilities against extinction. The enclosures themselves are built to keep the wildness intact. Heather, bracken, fallen logs, live prey delivered through hidden hatches so the cats hunt rather than feed. Keepers wear camouflage. They rotate so no single human becomes a familiar shape. Kittens are raised under what the project calls minimal human contact protocols. The kittens must never associate people with food, with safety, with anything. Because the moment a wildcat trusts a human, it is no longer a wildcat. It is a cat that will walk into a farmyard and get itself shot, or worse, breed with the tom that lives there. Between 2019 and 2023, 127 kittens are born across the 5 facilities. 94% of them are confirmed pure through genetic testing. That number alone, in isolation, is the quietest miracle in modern British conservation. Because it means the founder population held. It means the breeding program didn't collapse under inbreeding depression in the first generation, which was the single biggest fear on the whiteboard in 2019. But the keepers know something the press releases don't lead with. Captive born is not wild living. A kitten that has never seen a buzzard, never smelled a fox, never had to kill its own vole in deep snow is a kitten that will die in the first month after release. So the enclosures get harder, larger, colder. The final pre-release pens are built to mimic Cairngorm winter conditions in miniature. The cats are watched on infrared at night. Hunting kills are logged. Body condition is scored weekly. Only the cats that pass every threshold move forward. By late 2022, the project has something nobody thought possible 4 years earlier. Waiting list of release-ready wildcats. Pure. Wild condition, genetically diverse, ready, but the team does not open a single gate. Not yet, because before the cats can go out, something else has to come off the map first. The problem with releasing 19 of the rarest cats in Europe into a landscape is that the landscape already has cats in it, not wildcats, the wrong cats. The 300,000 feral domestics and their hybrid descendants that caused the collapse in the first place. Releasing pure wildcats into that genetic soup would be like pouring clean water into a contaminated reservoir and calling it filtered. The hybridization would resume within a single breeding season. The ark would empty back into the swamp it was rescued from. So in 2022, the project does something almost no reintroduction in Europe has done at this scale. It clears the ground first. Feral cat removal zones are declared across roughly 250 square kilometers of moor, glen, and pine forest, buffering the future release sites in the Cairngorms. Word removal is doing careful work there. This is not culling. This is a community trap neuter return program, the largest the Scottish Highlands has ever run. The logic is simple. A neutered feral cat cannot dilute a wildcat gene pool. A neutered tom holding a territory actually keeps other unneutered toms out. So every neutered cat becomes a small biological firewall. The numbers tell the story of a community that decided to show up. 340 Highland households are engaged directly. Crofters, hill farmers, estate workers, village residents. Traps are loaned out. Veterinary teams rotate through remote glens. Cats are caught, neutered, vaccinated, ear-tipped, and returned to the exact spot they came from. 1,847 feral cats are neutered across the buffer zones in less than 2 years. That is 1,847 potential hybridization events that will now never happen. In parallel, the science teams map the contamination with surgical precision. Camera traps across the entire buffer zone log every cat seen. Scat DNA surveys, where field workers collect droppings and lab test them for genetic markers, identify which animals are domestic, which are hybrid, and which are the rare pure wildcats that may still be hanging on in the wild. Every potential genetic contaminant in the release zone is mapped, named in the database, and tracked. And then there is the part of the project nobody puts on a poster: the conversations. The kitchen table meetings with gamekeepers who have spent 30 years being told their job is incompatible with conservation. The estate managers who lost lambs to feral cats and assumed wildcats were the same problem. The crofters who needed to be shown the difference between a tabby on a wall and a Highland tiger in the heather. The project doesn't fight these people, it folds them in. Gamekeepers become trap monitors. Crofters become camera trap hosts. Estate workers attend wildcat identification workshops. By the time the release date is set, the buffer zone is no longer a wildcat hostile landscape. It is a coalition, a 250 square kilometer stretch of Scotland where the local people are not the obstacle to recovery. They are the recovery's infrastructure. The gene pool is, for the first time in a generation, clean enough to receive what's coming, and what's coming has been pacing behind a steel gate for 4 years. January 19th, 2023, a quiet glen inside the Cairngorms National Park. No press helicopters, no fanfare, just a small team in muted greens, a cluster of acclimatization pens hidden in the pine scrub, and 19 wildcats listening to a forest they have never been in before. This is the first UK wildcat translocation in history. 19 doors are about to open. The protocol is called soft release, and it is the difference between a reintroduction and an abandonment. The cats do not go straight from the transport crate into the open hill. They spend weeks inside large acclimatization enclosures built directly inside the release habitat. Same air, same prey scents drifting through the mesh, same temperature swings, same midnight calls of tawny owls and roe deer. The cats learn the soundscape before they have to survive in it. Food is reduced gradually. Live prey is introduced. By the time the final gate is opened, the cat on the other side of the door is no longer a captive animal with a wild gene. It is a wild animal with a captive past. Each of the 19 carries a GPS collar weighing less than 2% of body mass, calibrated to drop off automatically after the monitoring period ends. Within the first month, those collars are pinging across 85 square kilometers of moor, ancient pine, and blanket bog. The cats disperse exactly the way the modeling predicted. Some bolt for the high ground, some hug the river valleys. 2 males establish overlapping territories within 4 weeks, which is faster than anyone dared hope. Then comes the first Cairngorm winter. This is the test the entire program has been built around. Snow on the tops, vole populations crashing under the white, temperatures dropping low enough to kill any cat that hasn't learned to den. The team braces for losses. The historical baseline for carnivore reintroductions in Northern Europe suggests first winter mortality of 40 to 60%. That is the number on the spreadsheet. That is the number they have made peace with. December 2023, the winter assessment runs. 16 of the 19 cats are alive, an 85% survival rate, roughly double what the literature predicted. The 3 lost cats are accounted for, 2 to natural causes, 1 to a road. Every other collar is still moving, still hunting, still holding territory, and then April 2024 happens. A camera trap on the edge of a release zone, set on a routine memory card swap, returns footage nobody on the team is prepared to watch dry-eyed. A female wildcat collared, recognized by the ID team within minutes. Behind her, in the heather, two small shapes, ringed tails, blunt little faces, wild-born kittens. The first wild-born wildcat kittens in the Cairngorms in living memory. Born outside any enclosure. Born to a mother who had never raised a kitten before. Born into a landscape that had been written off as the species graveyard. The ark didn't just hold, it opened. And something walked out, and that something had babies. What happens next is the part of the story even the project leads did not predict, because the cats were never just a conservation goal. They were a missing piece of a working ecosystem, and the ecosystem had been waiting. Start with the voles. Field vole populations across wildcat territories dropped 37% between autumn 2023 and spring 2024. That is not a crash from disease or weather. The weather data is normal. The drop tracks the cats. Voles are the staple prey item of the wildcat, and a single adult cat takes around 1,000 voles a year. Multiply that across 16 active hunters across 85 square kilometers, and the arithmetic does its own work. Voles do not sound important until you understand what voles do. For decades, in the absence of their primary predator, Cairngorm field voles had been quietly stripping young heather shoots and Scots pine seedlings at a rate that ecologists had been complaining about for years. Heather couldn't regenerate. Caledonian pine seedlings couldn't get above the browse line. The moor was stuck in a degraded state, and nobody could quite afford the intervention to fix it. Vole control by ground crews would have cost millions and required permanent staffing. The Wildcats did it for free. Within a single growing season, heather regeneration across the same vole-suppressed zones jumps 22%. The figure is not from a sample plot. It is from satellite imagery, NDVI vegetation indices, measurable from orbit. The moorland is visibly greener, taller, denser. Scots pine seedling survival climbs 31% in the same windows. The Caledonian forest, the ancient temperate rainforest of the Highlands that has been shrinking for 4,000 years, gains a measurable foothold for the first time in decades. This is the trophic cascade in miniature, the textbook Yellowstone story where wolves changed rivers by changing elk behavior, replayed at a scale a single Scottish national park can hold. Except here, the predator is 2.5 kilos and ring-tailed, and the prey is a thumb-sized rodent, and the outcome is a forest beginning to remember itself. 5 breeding cats, 1 mountain range, and the vegetation map of an entire region starts to shift. The conservationists who had been arguing for a decade that wildcats were not nostalgia, that they were a functional keystone, are watching their thesis prove itself in real time, from satellite. The cascade is only 1 breeding season old. By May 2024, the picture inside the Cairngorms has resolved into something that looked impossible on paper in 2018. 3 confirmed breeding pairs. Holding territories, defending them, raising young that have never seen the inside of an enclosure. The Cairngorms Connect Monitoring Network, a partnership stretching across 600 square kilometers of protected landscape between RSPB Scotland, Nature Scot, Forestry and Land Scotland, and the Wildland Limited Estates, logs, every confirmed kitten sighting. Camera traps. Scat DNA tracks in fresh snow. By the spring count, at least 7 wild-born kittens are confirmed across 3 separate territories in Glenfeshie, Strathspey, and the Inch Marshes corridor. These are second-generation animals, and second generation is the threshold biologists use to call a reintroduction self-sustaining, not just surviving. Reproducing into a future the project did not have to manufacture. The team does not pause to celebrate. A second cohort of 22 cats is already scheduled for release in June 2024, drawn from the 5 breeding facilities. Every one of them DNA vetted, wild conditioned, ready. 3 of that cohort carry alleles identified as underrepresented in founder line, deliberately bred forward by the studbook software to widen the genetic spread of the wild population by an estimated 8%. The release sites are pre-cleared. The buffer zone has held. The community network is still trapping, still neutering, still hosting cameras across 340 active households. The target on the wall now reads 60 wildcats established in the Cairngorms by 2026, with a long-range goal of 200 across 3 Highland landscapes by 2035, a number that, written down in any year between 1990 and 2020, would have been laughed out of a funding meeting. Today it is a project schedule, with dates, with names of cats, with territories already mapped in red ink on the staff room map. For the first time in over a century, the population trajectory of the Scottish wildcat does not point downward. It does not point sideways. It points up. The slope is shallow. The margin is still thin, and a single bad winter or single feline panleukopenia outbreak could undo years of work. Nobody on the team pretends otherwise, but the direction has flipped. The species that was being eulogized in 2018 is in 2024 being planned for, counted forward, not backward, and the international conservation community is starting to take notes. Because what happened in Scotland was not supposed to be possible. 5 to 10 breeding cats was supposed to be the obituary, not the seed. Something in the playbook has changed, and the rest of the rewilding world wants to know what. The Scottish wildcat case is now sitting on desks across Europe. Iberian lynx recovery teams in Spain and Portugal cite it. Eurasian lynx reintroduction proposals for Britain reference it. The wolf reintroduction debates in the Scottish Highlands and beyond reach for it. The Iberian Wildcat Conservation Network studies it. The case has become a working template, and the template carries 3 lessons that the field had not fully internalized before. Lesson 1. A genetic floor of 5 to 10 breeding viable individuals is not, by itself, a death sentence. It is a crisis, but it is a survivable crisis if the intervention is fast, well-funded, genetically literate, and willing to clear the contaminated ground before reintroducing. The old assumption that anything below 50 effective breeders was unrecoverable has been quietly revised. Lesson 2. Trophic cascades are not a Yellowstone scale phenomenon only. They happen at small scales too. A 2.5 kilogram predator deployed in the right numbers across the right landscape can shift vegetation indices that are measurable from orbit within a single growing season. Conservation does not always need wolves and brown bears. Sometimes it needs the species that fits the missing slot, whatever size that species is. Lesson 3, and this is the one being whispered in policy rooms more than the others. Wildcat recovery has been reframed. It is no longer a nostalgia project. It is no longer about saving a charismatic British mammal because Britain has lost too many already. It is about functional restoration of a working landscape. The wildcat is doing labor the landscape needs done. Vole suppression, forest regeneration, heather recovery. The cats are not symbolic. They are infrastructure. That reframing matters because it changes the funding language. It changes the political language. It changes the conversation with farmers, foresters, water authorities, and carbon offset schemes. A species that delivers measurable ecosystem services is a species that fits into the modern environmental economy. The Scottish Highlands have become a living proof of concept for European rewilding at large. A demonstration that even the most desperate genetic starting point can be turned around if the surrounding system is rebuilt with it. And every team working on a similar problem, from Pyrenees to the Carpathians to the Iberian Peninsula, is now studying a small ring-tailed cat in a Scottish glen and asking the same question. If they could do it from 5 to 10 breeders, what is our excuse? Same ridge, different year. A wild-born kitten steps into the frame. By every measure of 2018, it should not exist. It does. Follow for the next comeback story every Tuesday from the Cairngorms to the Carpathians and beyond.